Hey everyone and welcome. Today we're doing a mini deep dive on something I know a lot of you have been asking about. Hiring Apache Spark developers. Now, I know, big data can sound kind of intimidating. Honestly, finding the right people to work with it, even more intimidating, but don't worry. That's what we're here for. We're going to break it all down for you, all the need-to-know info, under 10 minutes.
While we're at it, if you're serious about finding the perfect Spark developer, do yourself a favor and head over to theperfectdeveloper.com. They've got this awesome tool called the 5 questions. It's a fantastic way to jumpstart your search.
Okay, the 5 questions at theperfectdeveloper.com. I'll definitely check that out. But first, let's get back to basics. Can you tell us, what does a Spark developer actually do all day?
It's about big data.
Right.
But what does that actually look like? So imagine this. A Spark developer, they're like a data maestro. They're taking these huge data sets, turning them into actual insights. Sometimes they're building data pipelines, pulling information from all these different sources. The next minute, they could be optimizing a super complex Spark job, making sure everything runs smoothly, efficiently, because with terabytes of data, speed is everything.
Oh, yeah. Makes sense. So it's not JSD about writing code. It's about understanding how to make that code work with, well, mountains of data.
Exactly. And it's not just coding in a vacuum either. They're working with a whole ecosystem of big data tools. Hadoop for storage, Hive for data warehousing, Kafka for real-time streaming. They need to know how it all fits together, how to make those pieces play nice with Spark.
Okay, so that's a lot of different tools and technologies. But what makes a Spark developer different from, I don't know, a regular software developer?
It's a totally different skill set. What sets Spark developers apart is their deep understanding of distributed computing. See? Most developers, they're used to writing code that runs on a single machine. But Spark developers, they're thinking about distributing that workload across a whole cluster of computers. It's a different way of thinking entirely. They're thinking about data partitioning, fault tolerance, optimizing performance in a distributed environment.
It's like data. They're not just writing the music, they're also designing and building the concert hall at the same time.
That's a great way to put it. And don't forget about their obsession with performance. They're constantly tweaking and tuning their code, squeezing every ounce of speed out of those Spark jobs using techniques like code vectorization, data serialization, just to make sure those queries run as fast as possible, even with those massive data sets.
Finding a Spark developer is like finding a unicorn that also happens to be a performance artist. Who can make data dance?
Though. If you're looking for those unicorns, theperfectdeveloper.com, that's the place to go. They're amazing at connecting businesses with those top-tier Spark developers, the ones who have that perfect blend of skills and experience.
Okay, that's good to know.
Yeah.
So let's say I'm looking at a Spark developer's resume. What are the absolute must-haves? What skills should I be looking for?
Well, the first thing, programming languages. They need to be fluent in the languages Spark is built on. Scala, Python, Java. Those are the essentials.
Okay, so programming languages, that's a given.
Yeah.
But what about their knowledge of the Spark framework itself? How do I know if they really know their stuff?
That's the key, isn't it? You want to see that deep knowledge of the core components of Spark, RDDs, data frames, Spark SQL. Those are the building blocks of Spark applications. But it's not just about knowing the syntax. It's about understanding how to use them effectively. Can they explain when to use an RDD versus a data frame? Do they understand the performance trade-offs of different Spark operations? That's what separates the pros from the amateurs.
Okay, so they need to know their way around the Spark toolbox. And more importantly, they need to know which tool to use and when.
Exactly. And it's not enough to just be a Spark whiz. They also need experience working with that whole big data ecosystem. Can they integrate Spark with Hadoop? Do they understand how to pull data from Kafka? Or write data to a NoSQL database?
So it's like DIA.
Yeah.
They're conducting this complex data orchestra, making sure all the instruments are playing in harmony.
I like that. And one more thing. Cluster management. Spark applications often run on clusters of computers. And managing those clusters, that's a whole other skill. They need to be comfortable working with tools like Yarn or Kubernetes, making sure those clusters are running smoothly and efficiently.
Okay. At this point, I'm starting to feel a little overwhelmed. It's like finding a Spark developer is like finding a unicorn who's also a conductor.
Yeah.
And a mechanic.
Well, it can definitely feel that way. But that's why resources like theperfectdeveloper.com are so valuable. They've already done the hard work of vetting developers, making sure they have the skills and experience you need.
Okay, so let's talk about everyone's favorite topic, money. What kind of salary should I expect to pay a Spark developer?
Well, The salary expectations can vary quite a bit. Depends on experience and location. A junior Spark developer, 0 to 3 years of experience, you're probably looking at around $70,000 to $100,000 per year.
Okay, not bad for a starting salary. What about more experienced developers?
For a mid-level developer, 3 to 5 years of experience, more like $100,000 to $130,000. And for a senior Spark developer, 5+ years of experience, proven track record, you could be looking at $130,000 to $180,000, or even more in some cases.
Wow, so experience really pays off in this field.
Yeah.
I'm guessing location plays a role too. A Spark developer in San Francisco is probably going to cost more than someone in Ohio.
Absolutely. Location is a huge factor. Those high-demand tech hubs like San Francisco, New York, Seattle, they're going to have higher salary expectations than other areas.
Right, supply and demand. So
we've talked about the skills, the experience, the salary. But now I'm facing another big decision. How do I actually bring this Spark wizard onto my team full-time, part-time, freelancer, outsource? So many options.
I hear you. There are a lot of different hiring models these days, and it can be tough to know which one is the best fit. But before we dive into that, I want to emphasize one thing. No matter which hiring model you choose, it's crucial to have a crystal clear understanding of your project's needs and the specific skills you're looking for. And remember, resources like theperfectdeveloper.com, they can be incredibly helpful in navigating these decisions and finding the perfect developer for your unique situation. Okay, that's good advice. And I think that's a great place to wrap up this part of our deep dive. We've covered a lot of ground.
Oh.
It's getting started. Stay tuned for part 2, where we'll explore how to actually find these Spark superstars and how to evaluate them to make sure they're the right fit for your team. And as always, if you're looking for more guidance, don't forget to visit theperfectdeveloper.com. They're an invaluable resource for anyone looking to hire top-notch developers. See you in part 2.
See you then.
Okay, so we know what Spark developers do. We know the skills to look for. But how do we actually find these Spark superstars? They sound kind of rare.
You're telling me they're in high demand for sure. But don't worry, there are ways to unearth these data gems.
Okay. Besides the usual job boards, where should we be looking?
Well, you mentioned conferences earlier. And you're right. Those are gold mines. Think of it like this. Big data conferences. They're Spark developers' natural habitat. Events like the Strata Data Conference, or the Apache Spark Summit. They bring together the best of the best. It's where Spark developers go to learn, network, share ideas. Attending those conferences puts you right in the heart of the action.
So it's less about formal interviews and more about building relationships, getting a sense of their expertise.
Exactly. And bonus, you'll pick up a ton of valuable insights about the industry, the latest trends, just by being there.
Okay. Conferences sound promising. You also mentioned specialized recruitment agencies.
Oh, yeah. Those can be a lifesaver, especially if you're short on time or resources.
How so?
Well, these agencies, they live and breathe Spark talent. They have a whole pool of pre-vetted candidates who meet your specific criteria. Plus, they handle a lot of the screening, interviewing, which can save you a ton of time and effort.
It's like having a personal Spark matchmaker.
Exactly. But like with any service, do your research. Make sure you choose an agency with a solid track record.
Right. Don't want to end up with a developer who's more familiar with spreadsheets than Spark clusters.
Oh, exactly. Now, regardless of where you find your potential Spark developers, the evaluation process is key.
Okay, so what should we be looking for when evaluating a Spark developer?
Well, obviously technical skills are important, but don't overlook those soft skills.
Like?
Problem-solving abilities, communication skills, how well they fit into your team culture, that kind of thing.
Right, because even the most brilliant developer, if they can't communicate or collaborate, they're not going to be very effective.
Exactly. You want someone who can explain their thought process, work well with others, and contribute to a positive team dynamic.
Okay, so how do we assess those soft skills?
Behavioral interview questions are really helpful. Instead of asking hypothetical questions, focus on past experiences. Ask them to describe a time when they had to, work under pressure, resolve a conflict, adapt to a changing environment. Their answers can tell you a lot about their work style, how they approach challenges.
I'm guessing a coding challenge is also a good idea.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Putting their skills to the test in real time. It's a must.
That's the best way to do that.
Well, there are tons of great platforms out there. HackerRank, CodeSignal.LeetCode. They offer a wide range of coding challenges and assessments. You can even customize the challenges to match your specific needs.
So it's like having a virtual coding arena.
Exactly. And speaking of making things easier, theperfectdeveloper.com. Their platform streamlines that whole hiring process, from finding qualified candidates to evaluating their skills, even managing onboarding.
Sounds like they've thought of everything.
They really have. So before we move on, any key takeaways you want to highlight?
Well, it's clear that finding and evaluating a Spark developer, it takes a strategic approach. We need to be creative in where we look for talent, go beyond just technical skills, and use the tools and platforms that can help us streamline the process.
I agree. Spark developers, they're not your average programmers. They have a unique combination of technical expertise, problem-solving skills, and that ability to handle massive amounts of data.
And while finding them might feel like searching for a needle in a haystack, the rewards are definitely worth the effort.
Absolutely. A talented Spark developer can be a game changer for any project involving big data.
Okay, so we found our unicorn. Now what?
Now it's time to welcome them to the team and set them up for success. Onboarding and integration, that's our next stop.
So we found our Spark superstar. We made sure they're the right fit.
Yeah.
Now, how do we bring them onto the team? How do we set them up for success?
Onboarding, integration, that's the final piece of the puzzle.
Okay, so day one, our Spark developer walks in the door. What's first?
First impressions, they're huge. You want to make sure their workstation is completely ready to go. Laptop, network access, software, licenses, everything they need. No one wants to spend their first week fighting with IT.
Definitely not. We want them writing code, not troubleshooting tech issues.
Exactly. And it's not just about the physical setup. They need access to everything. Code repositories, documentation, internal tools, platforms. Give them the keys to the Spark kingdom.
Got it. So they're all set up. They've got access. What's next? Just point them at a mountain of data and say, go.
Not quite. Before they dive into the code, they need context. Give them a high-level overview of the project, the goals, timelines, challenges, opportunities, the whole picture.
So they understand how their role fits into the bigger picture. It's not just about writing code, it's about understanding the why behind it.
Exactly. And this is where having a solid onboarding plan can be so helpful. It's like a roadmap. It guides them through those first few weeks or months, outlines what they need to learn, who to connect with, what milestones to hit.
So it's less about throwing them in the deep end and more about giving them a structured path to success.
Exactly. Structure, clarity, support. That's what boosts confidence and productivity.
What about introductions to the team?
Well, you don't want to just throw them into a huge meeting and say, here's the new person. A more casual approach is usually better. A team lunch, a coffee break, something to help them connect with their new colleagues on a personal level. And don't forget those one-on-one meetings, especially with the people they'll be working with directly.
So it's all about fostering that sense of belonging, building those relationships early on.
Exactly. And a mentor can be incredibly valuable, someone with deep Spark experience who can guide them through the technical nuances, answer any questions they have.
Like a Spark Yoda. Exactly.
Okay, we've got the setup, the introductions, the mentorship. How do we actually integrate them into the workflow?
Start small. Give them some less complex tasks at first. Bug fixes, code reviews, contributing to existing modules. Let them get familiar with your code base, your tools, your processes. So ease them in, build their confidence.
Exactly. Then, as they gain experience and confidence, you can gradually increase the complexity and responsibility of their tasks. And don't forget about feedback, regular check-ins, code reviews, even just casual conversations to see how they're doing. Communication is key.
Right. Because even Spark wizards need guidance and support.
They do. Now, there's one more thing we need to talk about. Cultural integration.
Oh, yeah. It's not just about the technical stuff.
It's about making sure they feel like they truly belong, like they're a valued member of the team.
Absolutely.
So make sure you share your company's mission, vision, values. Invite them to team building activities, social events. When people feel like they're part of something bigger, they're more engaged, more motivated.
It's like we're building a Spark family.
I like that. And remember, theperfectdeveloper.com, they can be a great resource for onboarding and integration too.
They really are a one-stop shop for all things Starks.
They are.
I think we've covered it all.
Yeah.
From finding those Spark superstars to setting them up for success.
We have. And remember, hiring a Spark developer, it's an investment in your team's future. Take the time to find the right person, create a supportive environment, and watch them work their data magic.
And to all our listeners, if you're ready to start your Spark journey, head over to theperfectdeveloper.com and try the 5 questions tool. It's the perfect way to start your search for the perfect Spark match. Until next time, happy data wrangling.